Awaken to hair growth. Awaken to hair growth because there is possibility to get your hair back. Awaken to hair growth because we're not told that we're able to conquer and overcome alopecia. Awaken to hair growth because I want to be a positive light and beacon for you because I've healed my alopecia and now I help others do the same with different types of alopecia, men, women, children of all ages, of all races and ethnicities. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Alopecia Angel podcast, Awaken to Hair Growth. I am your host, Johanna Dullman, and today we are talking about your future self. And for many of you, you're probably wondering, what does that mean? What does your future self mean? And your future self is the person who you envision you to be. So, for example, as adults normally ask kids, what do you want to be or who do you want to be when you grow up? And normally they say, oh, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to be, an actress, or this or that. Well, I'm asking you, to the adult, who it is, what it is, and how do you envision yourself to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Because more than likely, if you're listening to my podcast, you have hair loss, you have alopecia, and more than likely you want your hair back. So how soon do you want that to happen? And I am very goal oriented and I like to strategize and I like to say, okay, next year I want to do this. Next year I want to do that. Next year I want to accomplish this. And so we need to write down our goals and we need to work towards being that future self that we want, whether that's, whether your goal is to have hair and health and to rid yourself of all of your health concerns, including the hair loss, or, if that's to buy a house, or if that's to get a promotion, or if that's to travel abroad, or whatever your goals may be. And we need to cultivate that, right? Because what got you here won't get you there. And this is a very important thing to consider because our mindset, our environment, how we live, who we choose to become in the next 5, 10, 15 years also plays a part on who we are and what we're doing today. So for example, if you don't read any books, if you don't educate yourself, if you don't have any life experiences, if you just stay at home playing, let's say, video games all of this year and next year, you could probably assume that the next 5 years will probably look very similar, staying at home playing video games, right? But if you decide that, hey, I want to start a business, or I want to travel abroad, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Well, that's going to take some preparation. That's going to take some research. That's going to take some goal setting. That's going to take some planning, right? So for example, if you plan on doing a trip around the world, that will take planning for time off, for money, for hotels. How are you going to get there? Are you going to fly? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? So all these things take planning, consideration, and the same goes for creating and developing your future self. And yesterday I was actually talking to a client, and she had been dealing with hair loss for over 5 years. And it was consistent hair loss for 5 straight years until she found me, until she started my program. She's like, Johanna, I saw great success in your program. In the first 4 weeks, it just stopped. All of the hair loss stopped, and it became normal shedding, just normal couple strands here and there shedding, not the clumps that I was seeing. And that's fantastic. And I didn't get into this with her, but I'm wondering now in hindsight, how long it took her to create that future self of hers. And we can create our future self in less time. And sometimes our goals take time too, right? So let's say to create $1 million or to make $1 million, it will take a certain amount of time for that to happen, or to save up to buy our dream home. It will take time to save up, right? And so these are the things that you want to think about. So when it comes to creating your future self, you need to ask yourself, what is it that you want? And how much do you want it? How important is it for you? When I had just given birth to my baby, I had actually, I had gained like around 50 pounds. And it took me around 9 months though to get back to my normal weight and to shed it all. And I did so in a healthy manner, 50 pounds, 9 months. It took me 9 months to build those 50 pounds. So, and it took me another 9 months to drop those 50 pounds. And I did so with, healthy habits and many of the teachings that I demonstrate and share in my Hair and Heal program. And so meeting your future self also defines what's possible for you. Because if you don't think making $1 million is possible for you, or dropping 50 pounds, or growing your hair is possible for you, then you will find yourself to be somewhat stuck. But if you see it as a possibility, then that's the first step. And then we can work towards those next steps, those prerequisites, the planning, the preparation, etc., that's needed for that future self to happen. And, this is a very fine line of where that can happen, because again, a lot of it is us and our beliefs on what's possible for us, on the opportunities that we give ourselves. And many times people like to say that there's no healing for alopecia, that you can't get your hair back, like that's it, it's a one and done, or that this is your destiny and that's it, you just have to accept it. And as you know by now, I don't accept that. I don't accept what people tell me, and I don't accept that destiny. We all have our own future and destiny that we choose, that we write, that we can plan for, or just let happen, that we can choose for it to happen this way or not. And granted, that's not to say that there's setbacks, or that there's not, things that, life happens, so to speak. I had a client today who wrote to me that during the program that they were in, their grandparent died, and life happens. And so, but there's always ways to come back into the program. There's always ways to, pick up where you left off. So that doesn't mean that just because you have a setback, or let's say you got COVID, or you lost your job, or what have you, that you can't continue on to your goals. These are just kind of like bumps in the road, but you can always continue on. And so how do we develop your future self? And a couple steps would be to create a map of your past. We start looking at the past so that you can see the journey of your life. Maybe you could start to analyze your past with analyzing patterns, analyzing maybe past relationships, analyzing things that have not served you, things that were not positive in your life beyond alopecia. Because I will say, once I healed my alopecia, I started seeing that, just like any diagnosis, right? It doesn't happen overnight. Even though it feels like overnight, it wasn't overnight. And I could really look back to even childhood and start seeing all the mistakes, so to speak, that I was doing, or that I was brought up in with diet and lifestyle, that contributed to my later in life getting alopecia. And granted, some people get alopecia younger, some people get it older, but everyone has their own path, and we're able to use the past as a time for reflection, of a time for learning, and to really evaluate and see those lessons. Not an opportunity to say, woe is me, let's be bitter, let's be stuck in the past. No, it's a time to reflect, to analyze, and to learn from it. Also, so that we don't have to make the same mistakes, and also we can learn from it, right? Because let's say for those of you who have these cycles of vicious cycles of hair loss and hair growth, how do you know what it is that you did or didn't do to get the hair growth back naturally? Let's say just naturally by yourself, not doing anything. How do you know what it is exactly that you did or didn't do? You don't know. And this is why you're scared for the future. And this is why it's unpredictable. And this is why people say alopecia is unpredictable. It's not unpredictable. It's because we're not looking at our past. We're not evaluating what's going on, what we did, what we didn't do. And we're not really segmenting our steps. Once you segment your steps, once you really create a strategy, once you deliberately annihilate and eliminate the good and the bad, and like what's good for you, what's not good for you, what's healthy, which true health looks like, and all this tailored to you, then you're like, okay, I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what I didn't do to promote the hair growth and the health. And this is a repercussion of that. This is a result of that. So for those of you with vicious cycles, you can cut those vicious cycles today just by understanding much more of what you did and what you didn't do. And if you need help to do that, this is where I am. This is where I am here to help you with the Hair and Heal program. And another way to continue to design your future self would be then to deconstruct and analyze and create the persona with consistency and, with that coherent self of what you want yourself to be in the future. So for example, if I say I want to be an Olympian, I want to run track and I want to go to the Olympics, and what Olympics is coming up. And then you start to plan, okay, the Olympics in so-and-so country is coming up and this is what I want to train for. And then you have to see, right? Do I qualify? Do I qualify for my age? Do I qualify for this? Like how do I become an Olympian? Right? So whatever it is that you want to be or do, there's always a way, but potentially maybe not at the biggest scale. Maybe not, I can't go to the Olympics, maybe because of my age, but maybe I can do something else that's quite like the Olympics. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there's another challenging competition or tournament of sorts, maybe locally, maybe internationally, that I could still do in that field of track or any other sport that I wanted to pick up. And I'm using the Olympic aspect just as an example here. That's not my goal. Not at all. I definitely want to be happy and healthy, but not so much to be an Olympian. But and then the next thing we want to do is write down our values and our goals. What is it that we value today? What is it that your future self wants to value? So for example, you hear a lot of times where people are like, oh, I want to meditate. Oh, I want to take up yoga. Oh, I want to do this. Okay, well then what are you waiting for? Like, let's do it now. Let's start taking up yoga now. Let's start taking up Pilates now. Let's start taking up meditation now. And how do we do it? Well, you just start. You start with baby steps. You get a program, you get a book, you find things and information online. Like, this is how you start, right? And a lot of times having that coach gets you further. So for example, I remember when my brother was doing water polo, and he did it at a high level, I'd say, during high school. And he actually got coached by an Olympian, and he was, taking classes and taking feedback and doing the sport to a higher level because he had the one-on-one training with an Olympian, and because of someone who's been there, done that. And so if you want to reach higher levels, then sometimes you do definitely have to learn from others who've been there, done that, and who have gone before you, because this is why they're there, is to help you get there faster in less time. Just like if you wanted to learn about investing, you would probably pick up a book on somebody who's had huge success in investing, like Warren Buffett or, someone of that nature. And so this is where you look to the leaders of who you want to be as you create that future self. So writing down your values and your goals are huge and paramount to this. And then drawing out a vision map for your future. And what does this look like? Maybe in 5 to 10 years, or maybe let's say in 5 years, do you want to master the art of knitting? In 2 years, do you want to be a professional chef? In, 10 years, do you want to be a real estate investor? Like, what does this look like? What are these goals? What is this future self of you? And it doesn't have to be big, lofty goals like being an Olympian or being a professional chef, but it could be something like, I want just more free time for my family, or I want to have my parents retire comfortably, or I want to be able to take 2 vacations a year instead of just 1, or, you know what I mean? It's just like, we can map out and design the life that we want. And guess what? It can also include hair growth. It can also include health. It can also be all these things. And so many times the limitations we put on ourselves is just from us. It's not from anybody else. It's us listening to society that says, nope, you can't grow your hair back. Nope, nothing's going to work. Nope, this is not for you. And so that's the next thing. It's like, who is it in your environment or in society that you're listening to that's being negative, that's um, being a depressive person or lowering your standards? Because many times, as we've seen in psychology with children, it's like when you have high standards of them, then the children actually meet those standards. So, for example, living in Asia currently, I see that, many Asian parents have their children do multiple activities. They learn the cello, they learn a second and a third language, and they learn to play maybe multiple instruments, and they're really good at chess, and they have like fantastic behaviors and this type of thing. Well, how is it that their children are like this, and then like the rowdy children in in the States that I've seen are whining and crying and having tantrums? There's a disconnect, and a lot of it is because of maybe the expectations we have of our children, or maybe how they're brought up, or many other factors. And so there's a way to have high standards for ourselves so that we grow into that, if that makes sense, right? If when I was a kid, my mom, she would buy me bigger shoes because she knew I was going to grow into them. And so in a way, it's like having a bigger shoe so you can grow into it. Almost like getting that job promotion. A lot of times when you go for a bigger job, it comes with a ton more of responsibilities, maybe a lot more pay as well, but a lot more responsibilities. And so you grow into it and you learn as you're in that position. But if you get the job, it's because you're qualified, and the person hiring you thinks that you're very well qualified for, and you can grow into it. No one is, just automatically knows everything. You grow into it. And so growing into your future self is kind of like that, where you have to take steps to grow into it, and you have to leave space, but that space is also around your environment. So the people who are around you, are they leveling you up, or are they bringing you down? One thing my mom, was it my mom? No, it was my grandma. She always told me, watch who you surround yourself with, because they can bring you down or bring you up. Your friends could be motivators and uplifters, or they could, just have you settle and kind of like steer you in the wrong direction. And the same thing goes for friends and family and anyone else that's close to you, neighbors, community, etc. So watch who's around you and what they're saying to you, because, if they're close to us, it's for a reason. And if they're close to us, we consider what they have to say, maybe sometimes as truth, maybe sometimes as a word of concern, but sometimes as well, they're telling us things that's a reflection of their own limitations and not for us. And so I've seen this time and time again, where loved ones have said things to me in the past, and they mean it in a good way. However, they project their own limitations on me, and it's their own limitations that have nothing to do with me. I'm a separate entity, and I see myself as everything's an opportunity, and the possibilities are endless. This is the way I see life. And not everyone sees life as this, but I do. I see life as there's an opportunity for everybody. We just have to work at it, and that the possibilities are endless. And the more you see things as the possibilities are endless, then you start to be creative with your future. Okay, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to, work for, and this is what is going to happen. And quick story, before I met my husband, I had a vision board, and I had a vision board of what I wanted. And kid you not, I still have that vision board. It's in the basement of my mother and father-in-law's basement. And that vision board shows that I've accomplished like 95% of the things there, literally on the vision board. It's quite eerie in many ways. And not to say that I did the vision board and I was like, looking at it 24/7, but I did take a step to like visualize of like what it is that I wanted. And I do think that 95% of the population is a visual, person. This is why we sketch out dresses before they actually cut up the cloth and make it, right? This is why you have architects who create floor plans for homes and buildings before they actually construct it, right? Because you need to have a visual, you need to like put dimension to it. And this is what's needed many times to create the future of yourself. And it's not just saying to yourself, oh yeah, my goal this year for 2022 or for 2023 is to read one book each week. Okay, that's a great goal. But what types of books? Are these comic books? Are these self-development? Are these books on health? Are these books on wealth? Are these books on parenting? What type of books are these? And, how am I going to attain this? Because it's not just saying to myself, I'm going to get a library card and I'm going to read a book each week. Like, how am I going to attain this? How am I going to make this easier for me? And so maybe getting an Audible subscription, maybe, listening to books on audio tape would be easier. And how am I going to do this? Maybe during my commute. And so really going through the steps and going through the nitty gritty of how to create that roadmap and that vision board for your future and creating your future self. It all ties in together because it's what you want. And as you guys know my story, I knew I was not going to go bald. I knew I was going to have my hair back. And I did. And it's been more than 7 years. And I tell you this because we can work to obtaining our goals. Whatever lofty goal that you have, I know for all of you listening, it's to get your hair back. And this can be done and resolved in less than 8 weeks. This can be done and resolved in less time. But there's more goals out there. I know you have. I know you have more wants and desires for your future self. And so this is part of that process. This is part of that exercise that we need to do. And really, what's your present self? What is your present person in terms of behavior, thought process, likes, dislikes, intentions, the influence or the change? What is it that all that looks like for you today? Because, for example, when you're in college, let's say you have to have psychology 500A to graduate. But since I took no psychology classes, I need to start with psychology 101. And so my first class as a prerequisite would be psychology 101, then maybe 102, all the way to 500, right? And so there's a prerequisite to everything we want. You just don't let's say, all of a sudden decide and know. For example, for those of you who don't know how to swim, where is it that you start studying how to swim? Well, in swimming, you can read all the books, but it's not going to take away the exercise of going through in the water and being in the water, in the ocean, not just a pool, but in the ocean. And I'm a scuba diver. So when I was doing my scuba diving lessons, I was already an avid swimmer. But being a scuba diver, you actually don't need to know how to swim. And when I was doing my scuba diving lessons, they do the training in pools and just regular, normal home community pools. And then your test is done in the ocean. The ocean is a different beast. And the day I did my test in the ocean, it was cold, it was murky, and a seal had popped up and was swimming towards me. And I was scared because I thought that behind the seal, there would be a shark chasing it. Luckily for us, there was no shark, but at the same time, the seal really scared me. And so being in a comfortable area, let's say like the pool where you can see through, where it's warm, is completely different than taking the real test of the Pacific Ocean, in my case, cold, dark, murky, with animals in it, big animals. And so this is, it's very much a challenge, right? Because we can say we want a lot of things. We can say we want our hair back. We can say we want to reverse and heal alopecia, but what are you doing to move the needle? What are you doing to creating that future self? What action steps are you taking? And again, sometimes we can be in the pool and be very comfortable with the clear waters and the warm water. But how comfortable are you when push comes to shove and you got to jump into the ocean? Are you ready for that? And so this is where creating that process, seeing what your prerequisites are, and taking action to bettering yourself. to create that future self, and to also just rid yourself of the alopecia and the hair loss. I hope this has helped you a little bit in planning for your future goals and planning for your future self. This was just a snapshot of what's possible for you, a snapshot of how to start looking at your past, how to start looking at your future and realizing those goals and having them come true for you, having them come to fruition, because that's what I'm all about, is results. And I have the results of my hair, but then what's next? So after you accomplish alopecia, like what's next? And that would probably be my next podcast, because it's all about upgrading your health. And really that's the name of the game. It's not just hair, but now it's all about upgrading health. So I hope this has helped you and served you in many ways. I would love to hear your feedback and comments. Reach out anytime. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Alopecia Angel podcast, a positive light in healing alopecia. You can do this and we can help. Spread the word that reversing alopecia is possible by telling your friends and family.